Road here. Everyone, your host, Cy Smith, coming to you. Pardon the backdrop and everything. I wanted to make certain that I could be consistent and keep these weekly conversations going until things are where we need them to be. This week, our convention is about entrepreneurs, business owners, people that have taken a risk and is fulfilling whatever it is that they aspire to do and making money along the way. So I'm going to run this entire session here. I wanted to get it on video. I am streaming live for those people who are subscribers and have asked to be notified on my YouTube. You guys will be first alerted to watch it. So first, let's define what an entrepreneur is and what a business owner is, and then we'll go from there. So first and foremost, entrepreneur is someone who has decided, keyword, they made a decision, so it's a choice to be in control of something that they aspire to bring to market. Whatever it is, it's a decision. They've taken a decision and put it to action. They took risks, and now they got something that can be purchased or financially supported. Owner, same thing. So when I think about the U.S. Entrepreneurs Convention, I envision risk takers, people who have taken risks, who saw a need, have decided to fill their part, do their part to fill a need, took the risk, and got out there and executed on it. In the US, the largest economy in the world, it is both easier and harder depending on your racial background. If you're not black, it's easier. If you're black, it's going to be harder. And that's just because of systemic racism that continues to be prevalent in our society. So for black entrepreneurs, and that's the ones I want to really focus on, is some things we need to really, really be aware of if we're going to take the risk and go and start a business. We have a regulatory environment. In the regulatory environment, again, racism is there. There are hurdles and roadblocks that come in the form of regulation that unfairly targets our community. There are people who are benefiting right now, and those people who are benefiting right now sometimes have access to the people who make the laws, and therefore they make the laws in a way that keep you on the hamster wheel going around. They make it easier for them, or they flat out will not listen to that law. I think about, and I don't want to spend too much time on the negative, I think about the minority contractors and how white women were considered minorities, and therefore they were able to access resources that was originally intended to look at the minority, the ethnic minority problem, not the gender minority problem, which is, women definitely need their due, but all women, because you better believe white women fare better than black women when it came to women, from a gender perspective. So the takeaway from this convention or conversation is, if you are black and going into business, one of the first things I would recommend that you do is be clear with yourself. Be clear with yourself. What is it that you feel you can bring to the market? And if you feel you can bring it to the market, what is your niche? A niche is what's the caveat? What's the little thing that you do better than anyone else, or you do better than anyone in your immediate environment or market? So be clear about yourself. Make sure that you have an understanding of the market you're going in. So if you're going into landscaping, make sure you do your homework on all the landscaping in your neighborhood, in your city. Look globally as well. Do your homework on the manufacturer of the equipment that you're going to need and use. Know the history there as well. So do your homework, be clear. Number one, do a good, well-rounded assessment of the market. Also the pipeline, which is the supply chain, such as the manufacturers of the equipment you're going to need. Then look at your network. Look at your network. It's been said in business, you want to use other people's money. And the reason for that is you're gonna always have self-preservation as your, hopefully, your number one card to play. So if you can use anyone else's resources, then you know you're gonna use yours sparingly, So why not take the risk learning and trying out things with someone else's resource and know that you have yours as a fail safe, as the worst case scenario. So that's why I believe that statement was being made back in the day. To use other people's money, it allows you to grow, learn, build your network. Now, so once you do those things, be clear, do your history, make sure you got a broad support system. Then the next thing is to be financially astute. So what we don't want to do is be emotionally tied versus economically astute. Emotionally tied versus economically astute. When I first got started in business a long time ago, it was commonplace for people to hurry up and go out and just get a storefront. Whatever the business is, get a storefront, then get their name on it. And that was an emotional feeling of I've made it, I've arrived. And what I want you to know is that's not the ideal way of doing business. The Before you occur overhead is expenses that cost you independent of profits, salaries, staff, things of that nature. It's stuff like rent, utilities, insurance, things of that nature. That's overhead. So before you go and accumulate overhead debt that's due every month, get your cash flow going first. Get revenue, get new customers, bill, and then later go and acquire this overhead that's going to cost you every month. And location matters. So sometimes it's practical to get a physical location on the main strip or something like that. But just be slow about getting emotionally tied to being able to point to what you've done. Because if that's your motivation is to be able to show people you've done something, then you weren't clear, which is the first thing I started with. Be clear about what it is you want to accomplish. And so if you're clear that you want to provide this service to people, then your motivation isn't to be seen, but it's to provide this service to whoever your market is. So again, don't be emotionally tied to that overhead cost. I've watched too many business owner entrepreneurs gather overhead and they don't have traffic flow. Let me say that again. They have the physical location, it looks good, they family come over and friends and they like, ooh, you made it, but the customers aren't there. And the challenge for them is you can only go so long with overhead without the traffic to match that. And so that's why I say you don't want to do that. You want to have customers, traffic, especially in this day and age where your customers can be in India, Pakistan, and United Arab Immigrants. You don't necessarily have to be tied to a physical place anymore. However, it's good to have a base. It's good to be anchored somewhere. So I do suggest you do it. The issue is when you do it. And that's what I would say, be not as quick to get that emotional satisfaction without making sure that it's economically making sense. So be clear. Make sure once you're clear, you do your research, broad-based research. Then you want to make sure that you are being practical in terms of how you're going to spend money, because you want the money that your support system gives you, loans you, to be the most bang for their buck. Then you want to get out there in the market and see what the natural response is. Sometimes entrepreneurs pay people for surveys, pay people to give them feedback. Before you do that, see what's out there organically first. Give it 90 days to see what the people are saying organically about your product or service that you're providing. Once you do that, then you can go a step further and pay people, because sometimes people answer based on who's paying them. And so you want to be slow to get that type of feedback. You want feedback that's organic in nature, not being driven by you paying someone. All right. So anyway, so once you got the feedback, then execute on whatever your product or service is, but always give great feedback, a great customer service, and get feedback from people. Ask people what they recommend you to their family and friends, so that you're constantly growing. And that's the key if you're an entrepreneur, is do the service, do it well. Make sure if you got staff that you train them on how do a person feel when they hang up the phone with you or your employees? How do they feel when they turn around and walk out the door of your you and your staff, it makes certain that they are conscious about the customer experience. Customer experience is everything, because even if I don't give you what you wanted, The way you walk away would dictate and tell that person if they want to recommend you to their family and friends. So that's important if you're in business, to make sure that that's a key part of whatever it is you choose to be a product or service to personnel. So now, once we get that done, then you want to look at legacy. Legacy. What is legacy? Legacy is what happens when you're dead and gone. What will people remember you by? Ask customers in one word, how do they describe what you bring to the table? Those are good ways of surveying to see what people think about the business or service that you provide. So if a person walk away saying that they love the fact that your product or service makes them feel good, that's good. You want to capture that and you want to share that with people. So let's recap what I just said. The first thing is, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, be clear with yourself. That's number one. The second thing I said, if you're going to, once you be clear, is do your research, or some people say homework. Find out about the market, find out about other people that's in this field, in this trade, and find out about your supply chain. Find out who's the manufacturer of the product and services that you want to provide. The family or the manufacturer of the equipment you use, and you wonder why they're ahead. Well, probably because they got an inroad there. So always be clear, number one. Number two, do your research. Number three, make sure that you have a support system, a network of people who can help you, whether it's with intellectual support or economic support. And then once you do that, then you want to do an outstanding job of customer service, so that when that customer walks away or hangs up the phone, they have a good feeling about you. Then you want to ask them the simple question: would they recommend you to their family and friends? If you gave them lousy customer service and you ask them would they recommend you to their family and friends, what do you think they're gonna say? H to the end. You know what I mean? So no. So you want to do that because that's your way of testing whatever it is your product or service is, to test your delivery of that. And then I think I said the last one is to make certain that once you do that, you capture their feedback, you share that feedback so that you can attract new and more people. So I just gave you some real insight that I would give to any entrepreneur starting out. And now I want to switch over a little bit and talk about the competitiveness or the competitive market. And then the last part I'm going to talk about is financing and money. So in the competitive market, and I talked about finding your niche. So whenever you start your business, what is your niche, and build off of your niche. But let's talk about the competitive market. Now, this here, I'm gonna be a little biased on this point as an entrepreneur. I'm biased to the point that I'm a spiritual guy. And so whatever I do, I'm being led by the spirit. So I'm not talking to you as a capitalist or an economist. I'm talking to you from a spiritual standpoint. And that's why I said be clear as an entrepreneur. First thing, be clear. Because here's my philosophy, which might differ from you if you're not a spiritual person. I believe that I'm fulfilling a destiny. That's how I feel. And if you feel that way too, then this will apply to you. But if you're not in that spiritual world, you could just be doing a job or doing the best you can. So I'm going to speak to what I care about, which is if you're spiritual, you're providing or you're fulfilling your destiny. What that means spiritually is it's bigger than money. It's bigger than fame. It's bigger than everyone talking about you. Those are emotional triggers that, again, some people, that's what they go into business for. But for me, it's a matter of God allowed me to go through X, Y, and Z growing up. He allowed me to build these networks. And the payback is for me to take that and build a product or a service that's going to edify and uplift other people. So again, I'm biased here because I'm a spiritual guy. So if that's not your philosophy, then this won't work for you, this part. So you can tune out this part. So as I said, when you talk about being competitive in the market, if you're coming from one of my standpoints, you want to make certain that whatever you do is being done knowing that it's bigger than you. See, some business owners and entrepreneurs, it's all about them. It's all about ego. It's all about them having their ego stroked or uplifted. And for those people, to me, it's a hamster wheel. You're always chasing that. It's not a fulfillment there. Even if you got the nice car, the nice house, it's never enough. So I feel bad for people in that world, in that moment in time where they're always chasing something that if they really just looked in the mirror and believed in themselves, they wouldn't have to chase that as an entrepreneur. So back to us, the people on this side who believe whatever your business is, that it's a fulfillment of your destiny. Now you operate with gratefulness. You grateful that God allowed you to go through what you went through. You grateful that God allowed you the good and the bad relationships to build you up to where you are now. So now when it's time to compete, it's really no competition. Why? Because you was made for this. God created you for this. God allowed you to do, endure, meet for a time such as this right here. So when I talk about competitive in the marketplace, for those people on this spiritual side, is really no competition. But you also got to be humble to the point as an entrepreneur that you know is bigger than you. Why do I say that again? Because some people want all the customers. Well, that's not spiritual. You want all the customers? So it got to all be about you and your business? That's not right. What spirituality you following? You want all the customers, so no one else has a dream. No one else is going to school trying to build up so they can do the business. It got to all go to you. So again, going to my first point, are you clear with yourself? If you're clear, then you want to do your part. You want the customers that is meant for you. And you don't get into this vitriol spirit of out there looking at your competition and going after them and trying to hurt, harm, or belittle whoever you perceive as your competition. Because guess what? At the end of the day, you're not gonna have everybody. Nobody would. And so you're on that same hamster wheel as the ego people if your goal is to get everyone. Again, for me, I'm very confident that I'm gonna touch who God want me to touch. I'm gonna fulfill what God called me to fulfill as long as I do my part. So it's that type of humility that you want to operate with if you are an entrepreneur. I counsel entrepreneurs all the time who are so eager and hungry that they ready to plow over everyone, plow over anything to get to a level of success that really isn't success. It's them chasing materialistic or ego or attention and things of that nature. And again, if that's where you are, more power to you. But I wanted to make sure that people know when it's time for market competition that you compete with honor, with dignity, and with the mindset that if your daughter or son was getting in this business, how would you want an adult to compete with them? Do you want them to be all in and they'll take your daughter out just so that they can win and succeed? Probably not. So you want to be real mindful of that and careful of that when you are out there competing. Then the last thing is you want to make certain that financially, that's the last thing, finance. It's so easy to go out there and get a bunch of credit card debt. It's easy to go out there and get a lot of people to loan you money. Let me pause here, you guys. I know we're live. I think I can't pause. So it's easy for people that when it's time for financing, that they forget about the fact that if you acquire a loan, that's a debt. That debt has to be repaid. And so if that's something that you got to always think about, you want to make certain that you have coverage. It's okay to use other people's money, which is what we talk about, but you want to make certain that if things go bad, your name credibility sustains, because that is kind of what you really are basing everything off of. And so if you get in a flow where you're defaulting on what you put your name on, it's going to carry bad. And once the word get out that you're that type of business entrepreneur, it's going to make it harder for people to even want to do business with you. So you want to be mindful of that when it comes to finance. You want to be mindful of that when it comes to borrowing people money, whether it's family, friends, or even the commercial banks. You want to be mindful of that. The good news for all the entrepreneurs linked in with our network is we are building a process where we're going to be able to ask for a little bit from a lot of people. Therefore, it's a lot of money at scale, and it can be then used to take risks with people in our community that are entrepreneurial minded. And so I look forward to the day when you need $1 million to start this business. We get 1 million people to give you 4 quarters. There's your $1 million. So I'm gonna leave it there. I just wanted to come on here every week. It's a different subject matter. I could have really, if I really wanted to, I could have got some entrepreneurs on here, but this was enough for you guys just to hear from me, and we'll make it better next year for the Entrepreneurs Convention out of Gary, Indiana. Every one of these weekly conventions is centered around pulling people together in the area that they are in and giving them layers of support. $12 a year is how we operate. The conventions are going to be a different financial model, but just know $12 a year is the anchor no matter what we do on the other side. Thanks for watching. Phone number is 312-405-8844. 312-405-8844.